This is Don't Mind Me, I'm Different. And I'm your host, Ron Sowers, here to teach you how to put a foot in depression's ass and turn ADHD from a perceived weakness into a superpower, where you can be the hero in your own story. Let me be your guide to join in legions of Avengers just like yourself. Speak out and break the chains of this stigma. So you'll be the one at your job that people come to instead of running away from. Take back your life and own your difference. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm just a guy with ADHD and depression. I am not a professional. So if you are struggling with these, depression especially, please seek out professional help before it's too late. Okay, today's episode is going to be different. We're diving headfirst into ADHD and depression from a Black perspective, something often left unspoken, unheard, and deeply misunderstood. But I promise you, this isn't the conversation you're expecting. By the end, there's a twist I guarantee will leave you thinking. So grab you some water, maybe a pen and a notebook. And if you're not driving, of course, and get prepared to have your mind blown. Now let's start here. When you think about ADHD, what comes to mind? Probably hyper kids, distractions, and of course the stereotypical laziness. But now imagine being Black, living with ADHD, and adding a layer of invisibility. Or worse, that's just how they act. Now I can't wrap my mind around what that must feel like. But being raised to hustle harder, keep it together, push through no matter what, that has to be extremely difficult, especially when you think and believe that you have no one you can talk to about it. Yet, what happens when ADHD and depression make it impossible to live up to that grind? You hear the whispers, man, you're just lazy, or just get it together. Does that sound familiar? We've all heard the stories of having to work twice as hard to get half as far. But what happens when your brain fights that narrative? Now here's the twist. What if working twice as hard isn't the answer? The truth is ADHD doesn't care about how hard you hustle. It defies traditional ideas of the grind culture. We don't need more willpower. We just need different tools. And what if depression isn't a personal failure, but a silent protest against the constant pressure? Sometimes it's your mind screaming for a break you didn't know you needed. Or let's go out on a limb that this isn't what was meant for you. Now, Psychology Today says, and some of you may or may not know this, Martin Luther King Jr. suffered from severe depression. He had multiple periods of depression and even twice attempted suicide as a child. Near the end of his life, some of his staff tried to get him into psychiatric treatment, but he refused. Mental health advocates have pondered whether stigma deterred him from seeking help and whether fears of retaliation pressured him to mask his feelings of depression. It is no criticism to say that King had severe depression, a psychiatric illness. Some research studies have shown that depression enhances empathy towards others, as well as realism in the assessment of one's circumstances. Yeah, and when I read this, it actually, like, he did all that and dealt with depression. that gives me hope, and I hope it does with you, because like he became widely unpopular because of the stances that he took against the war, because the way that he saw that in his worldview. And I can't imagine the weight that he felt, but like the fact that he was able to push on to his dream, gives me hope that I can attain my dreams, and that you can too. Because I know that I woke up feeling depressed today. It's Monday. Like, I'm back to the grind. It's cold out again. That's why I'm grateful that I have my routine, and I just gotta just go through the steps. It's like a ladder to my day. It's like I'm gonna get here, even though I'm down here. And yeah, I'm still feeling a little depressed, but I'm actually motivated, and I'm feeling pumped up for today's episode. All right, let's talk about mental health in the Black community. The stigma, the whispers that that's just white folks stuff when it comes to getting therapy or medication, particularly with many stimulants being a controlled substance, and how that has been perpetuated by the medical community about Black culture. Oh, he's just trying to cop some more drugs. So what now? Just grind on in silence, feeling broken, alone, and misunderstood, and hope for the best? However, here's where it gets real. ADHD isn't something that just affects rich white boys, although that is where a lot of the initial research was conducted, when in reality, it's been mislabeled. How many times have you heard, they just acting out, when it was actually ADHD? Or, there they go singing about the blues again, when it was actually depression. I mean, what would you do if all you had to live by were the leftover scraps? They are the same symptoms, yet when you bring it in the context of race, it becomes a specialized issue. A lot of shame and blame has gone around from individuals characterized as lazy, disorganized, and untimely. Now, the goalpost has been moved back from getting the right diagnosis to overcoming a stereotype. What if that it is actually perpetuating a sense of identity amongst an entire culture? This is from Howard U. When Black children exhibit ADHD typical behaviors, they are often misdiagnosed with a conduct or behavior disorder. When you have a Black child who's up and down, out of their seat, who's not able to focus enough to respond to the teacher in the classroom, that is often perceived as disruptive, says psychologist Alfie M. Breland Noble, PhD, founder and president of AAKOMA, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering Black, Indigenous people of color and their families about mental health. As a result, Breland Noble says, our kids are often misdiagnosed because people look at their behavior more punitively than they might look at the same set of behaviors in a white child or another child of color. But hold up. Here's where things get strange. What if labeling is both the problem and the solution? There's power in naming what you feel, but there's also a trap. Too often, diagnoses like ADHD or depression are viewed as deficits. What if we flip that? Instead of a disorder, what if we saw ADHD as a creative disruptor, forcing us to think differently? What if depression wasn't a weight holding us down, but a message saying, you're not meant to live this way? Your spirit is whispering to you that there is something better out there. You just need a little guidance, a spark of motivation, and some courage to get up and take back your life. Again, from Howard Yu, another challenge Black families often face is the acceptance of the ADHD diagnosis. Melvin Bogard, marketing manager of Howard's Center of Excellence in Teaching, Learning, and Assessment, formerly worked as a digital content director for children and adults with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, CHAD, where he created content for families with ADHD with a focus on the Black community. He found that Black families sometimes don't want to acknowledge their child's ADHD. We already have so much to deal with. We already have so many labels. We already have so many stigmas, Bogard says. Some parents say, I just don't want my child to have another label. While good intention, failing to help these children in the present can make their lives more difficult. Moving forward, if your child broke their leg, there's no stigma attached. You're going to get that leg set because you want that bone to heal so your child can have a healthy life going forward, says Breland Noble. Having something like ADHD is the same thing. You want a diagnosis of the behaviors of the problem so you can find the right tools and resources to help your child in the long term. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this just to stir up trouble or say that there aren't Black people that are getting the help that they need. I know plenty of them personally. This is just to open the eyes to those that aren't and absolutely deserve to be helped. That's why I went out and asked those difficult questions to those in the community around me.
What's that? What's ADHD?
Oh, you don't know? It's a attention hyperactivity disorder.
And that means what?
You hit right on the button when you said that. Like people misunderstand you. Misunderstand your actions. And stuff like that.
I don't ran into anything where I feel like it has stopped me.
There's been no like barriers to getting like the help that you need or the support.
Well,
Okay.
my psychiatrist is Black herself, so
That's awesome.
I feel like that kind of, yeah.
So like you feel like you can really connect and relate with her. Yeah, that's important.
I can definitely see that coming up, especially like my most darker friends, you know.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see how people can, you know, be judgmental or I just say what's the right word? I don't want to put it.
It might
Like
label.
stereotyping.
Yes.
What are those barriers like?
Healthcare.
Okay.
You have less access to the actual healthcare that you really need. Schooling, you don't get the same access to the mental help that you need in schools, especially when you have the schoolwork and you can't concentrate on it. You get left behind basically. And they really canceled out the No Child Left Behind, so you really get left behind.
I know it's terrible, especially with like all these cuts, and the first one is always the education system.
Absolutely. Yeah, that brings me to my point. I have my son has ADHD.
Yeah.
And when he goes to school, he's like singled out, even by the teachers. You know, he's singled out to the point where he'd rather be by himself or not even go to school at all.
Yeah.
So I believe there need to be more programs or something for kids to get the one-on-one that they need instead of them being in a large classroom
And they don't
get
catch on as
ignored,
fast.
or they don't even get the attention that they need because they're different from the other students, which is I think needs to change.
Yeah, and the fact that you being social is such a key to like so many. It opens up so many doors.
Absolutely.
And the fact that you feel isolated and you feel stigmatized and you're labeled, like that adds so much to the barriers for anybody having success.
Absolutely.
And so it feels like you got to hustle
A lot
twice
harder
as hard
than the average.
and not even get as much, right?
And you never get as much. You
That's-
try,
yeah.
you want it as bad as you want it, but it doesn't always succeed the way we want it to.
You know, have you spoken to a doctor?
Honestly, my parents, growing up in a certain group of people, you know, they don't always take mental health and you know, everything to the extreme. Mm-hmm. But it is acknowledged, but that's about it.
So that's even another barrier.
Yeah.
They're not taking you seriously.
Not in the community of it all, not really.
Do you like? Can you imagine know why that might be?
Honestly, history
Yeah.
of I'm gonna say the black population in smaller areas, like especially like DC, they look at it as you have a roof over your head, you have clothes on your back, you have shoes on your feet, food on the table. That's the main logistics.
Yeah.
As long as you have that, you're good. You're in school, you're good, but everything that comes after with it, so mental health, your actual needs, ADHD, people who have autism, all of that is really not frowned upon, but it's overlooked.
Yeah, it's just like do your job and
Literally,
sit down
that's
and be quiet.
That's literally after that. Once you're done
tough.
with that, you go about your business and you make life do with how you make life do it.
It was always a tough one for me because I loved my teachers. I had great interactions with them every day in class and in school.
Yes.
I was always the one that disappointed them the most because they had the most like hope for me because I was like a smart kid. But
Okay.
I never applied myself, so it was always like I was disappointing them.
Yeah.
But
okay. Yeah.
so later on in life, you know, I figure out what
No,
it
it's
was
tough.
and everything, and it really helped me, you know, once I got my diagnosis, to really understand why those things were the way they were, and I'm way happier now.
So, did you have any barriers, like being black, or
So I'm mixed race. I'm half black and I'm half white. But my story is that I grew up in a lot of different countries in Africa, including my mom's country.
Yeah.
She's from Ghana, and so being over there, like looking what I look like, no one thinks that I'm from there.
Oh, okay.
And so that's always a bit of a struggle.
So you had to struggle like just fitting in to any of the cultures.
Pretty much. So like even right here, standing in this very spot, I met like a Ghanaian lady because my mom's from Ghana. Like,
Oh wow.
I met her like 4 months ago.
Yeah.
I was trying to stop her. She was wearing something Ghanaian, so I was like, "Oh, you're Ghanaian? Like I'm Ghanaian too."
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she was like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "That's kind of rude, you know?" Like,
Wow,
and then,
yeah,
so I was
yeah.
actually standing with my friend, and she left and she came back later. And my friend tried to stop her, and he was like, "You know, you really upset my friend earlier and stuff." So she came up to me. She was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you know, and this and that." And I explained to her that, yeah, no, something that I've gone through my whole life. Ghanaians telling me that I'm not Ghanaian. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
not-
rough.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, like having ADHD and dealing with that stigma. So
Yeah.
exactly. Did you have any barriers like getting the diagnosis of?
Yeah, because you know, growing up in these places, no, one is not the most common thing in the world. You know? I mean, it is pretty common, but like in these places, the awareness is not there and everything.
Oh yeah.
People just think it's one thing or another. So I only got diagnosed in my 20s. You know, like it would have helped if I got diagnosed way earlier. But growing up in these places, like no one even thought like it was a thing or anything. They just thought it was kind of lazy.
Yeah. No, exactly. And so, did your family support you in this, or?
Yeah, my dad. The thing is, if my dad as well, like he's done a lot of great work and stuff, but he doesn't really run in the family, I'd say, or anything. So he was never fully aware of these kinds of things and all. But I will say that if he was more aware of the situation, he would have. No matter what it was in my life, I have other health issues and stuff. He was always like, you have to go to the doctor, you have to this, you have to that. So he's always been very supportive.
That's
just
awesome.
that he didn't really know. So, but if he knew or had any kind of inclination of that it might be the case, he would have been like even more supportive, and I would have had the help like much earlier. But things happen for a reason. I got to where I'm at here.
Now, if you allow me to share something else real with you. As you may well know, I'm not black. However, I've been living with ADHD my entire life. I spent countless years merely surviving and not even knowing it. And I can tell you that there's a huge difference between that and thriving. I've had access to medication, therapy, and doctors, even to the point where I refused. I understand what it was like to be misunderstood, but I've always had the opportunity to get the help that I needed. Now, I can't imagine how hard it would be without that even being an option. Without opportunities, you gotta learn survival strategies. But thriving? Now that's foreign territory. The surprise is that thriving looks completely different from what you may have been told. Sometimes thriving means pausing to take a breath. Sometimes it means abandoning everything you were taught about productivity and actually doing things that seem absolutely counterintuitive. In a world that says go harder, maybe you need to get more sensitive. Maybe you need to rest more. Say no. I don't need that right now. I'm completely swamped and drowning over here. And focus less on what you think everyone else expects of you. And here's the kicker. Rest can be a revolutionary act. I know, it's radical. We're taught to always be moving, pushing forward so you can sleep, or you can sleep when you die. But when you have ADHD and depression, you're forced to slow down. It's like you're running in sand. But what if that's exactly what you need? To stop running a race that was never designed for you to win in the first place. So again, this is psychology today. The deeper attitude behind King's philosophy was his view that we should be creatively maladjusted. King was explicit in his sermon on this topic. Everybody passionately seeks to be well-adjusted, he said. But there are some things in our world to which men of goodwill must be maladjusted. Human salvation lies in the hands of creatively maladjusted people. Psychiatrists and psychologists call adjusted the intention of fitting in, being accepted, functioning well. The average teenager is obsessed with being adjusted, but so are adults. More than we care to admit, the average corporate employee, the typical professor, intellectual, television pundit, they are all rewarded for being well-adjusted. But this kind of normal thinking, this conformism, is deadly to creativity. One never has a new idea. The past is the future. All problems become insoluble dilemmas. And yeah, that's kind of depressing in its own. So it's okay to be creatively maladjusted. It focuses on your strength of being creative. We don't need to fit in. We need to stand out like everyone else because we deserve to live a life, a normal life. We deserve to not be marginalized and put and labeled and put in a corner. We deserve to take back our lives. Now, here's the twist you weren't expecting. If you've been following along, you're probably thinking this episode was about ADHD and depression in the Black community. But actually, it's about freedom. Freedom from expectation. Freedom from labels. And most of all, freedom to rewrite your story. The Black experience with ADHD and depression isn't about fitting into anyone's mold, not even the mental health model. It's about radically redefining what wellness looks like for you and taking a deeper look at who you really are. I know that me personally, I'm still trying to figure that out. So what if your ADHD was a superpower in disguise? What if your depression was a teacher, not an enemy? Today's conversation isn't about mental health. It's about breaking free. Free from the grind, free from the guilt, and free to create a life on your own terms. Now, here's some famous black individuals that have ADHD. So Soling Knowles, she's a singer, actress, and fashion icon. Solange Knowles has ADHD. She says that she has always been full of energy and claims that sometimes her sporadic speech led people to believe she was on drugs. Will Smith. Actor and rapper Will Smith wasn't diagnosed with ADHD as a child. However, he was diagnosed as an adult. Whoopi Goldberg. Actress and comedian Whoopi Goldberg has ADHD. That did not stop her from winning every major acting award, including an Oscar, a Tony, and 2 Golden Globes. You go, girl. Michael Jordan. Wow, I was surprised by this. Considered by many to be the greatest basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan also has ADHD. He went on to win 6 championships and influence young athletes to achieve their highest potential. Stevie Wonder. Composer and singer Stevie Wonder refused to let ADHD slow down his musical aspirations. He is one of America's greatest R&B innovators. That's awesome. Harry Belafonte. Singer and actor Harry Belafonte has ADHD. ADHD did not stop him from being a major force in the civil rights movement and breaking barriers for people of color in Hollywood. And finally, Earvin Magic Johnson. Hall of Fame basketball player and entrepreneur Magic Johnson has ADHD. He's achieved many things, including owning franchises, restaurants like Starbucks, Burger King, and TGI Fridays. So I hope that gives you guys some hope that this isn't something that should be holding you back. So you've been told you need to work harder. Today, I'm telling you, you deserve to work differently. And that's the surprise ending. Your ADHD, your depression, they're not limitations. They're invitations to build a life that doesn't fit the script. So tear it up and write a new one. Take back your life. So as always, I hope you guys enjoyed. There's my Patreon. You can join that. Any little bit helps to keep this going. If you like it, join my Patreon for exclusive content, early access, and behind the scenes insight. Your support helps me continue creating valuable resources while giving you perks tailored to your need. Come on, let's grow together. Unlock your premium benefits today at patreon.com/Ron Sowers. That's patreon.com/RONSOUERS. And as always, subscribe, and may the source be with you. This needs to be brought to attention, just like what you guys are doing. Like, there needs to be an awareness about it.
I'm glad you out there.
Yeah, thank you.
No matter how small, as long as you start the fight, start the conversation of getting it done. You know what I mean? And I appreciate you out there. At least start the conversation to getting things done.
Yeah. The most powerful form is like one-on-one, like what you're doing too.